Alright, hello everyone and welcome to another speed paint video. So for this one I am doing another 3 marker challenge. And compared to my previous videos and my previous artworks, this one is going to be different because I am only using Ohuhu markers for this challenge. Now for those who might not know, I recently bought 120 markers of Ohuhu markers, which also doesn't include the skin tone set. So I have a lot of markers now, and I recently released a video where I kind of shared my initial thoughts on the brand and the markers itself, because I primarily use Copics and Prisma. So using a brand that was deemed as cheap and also very good for beginner artists, I really wanted to try them. So when I released the first video to express my initial thoughts, the drawings I had shared, I would say, are pretty simple. They were quick drawings that I quickly put together just for that video, and I felt like I needed to challenge Ohuhu even further. So with this one, I'm challenging it with a full-on illustration and kind of like a brainstorm session. I think I said in the last video as well that these markers, if they really do compete well, then I would rather bring these markers if I do conventions again instead of bringing my Copics, because they tend to be pretty expensive carrying around and I get pretty stressed about them. So if I can bring these instead, that would be a lot better. And so with a 3 marker challenge, if you don't know what it is, the rules are very simple. All you have to do is grab 3 randomized colors and try to create illustration using only those 3 colors. Now there's a lot of deviations, a lot of different versions of this challenge, and I chose something that's a little bit more open-ended and a little bit more free. I choose the one where instead of only using these 3 colors as part of your illustration, these 3 colors instead are the primary inspiration of an illustration. And as someone who likes to draw people, they tend to be the primary inspiration for creating a new character. And so with these 3 colors, the first thing I thought of was kind of like succulents and maybe earthly tones, maybe a bird. So I explored there a little bit just to get my brain moving. But one of the difficulties with this set of colors is that the intensity of each hue, they're all kind of in the same level of intensity, so I couldn't determine which one should be more important than the other. They all kind of screamed like they were all equal, and they said, focus on me, look at me, So I couldn't decide on what to do. So I was kind of just playing around initially, and I'll admit I also hit a lot of artist block in the middle of this process. I personally think, though, it's because I was watching Anastasia when I was sketching this, because Anastasia is apparently also now on Disney Plus. So I had to watch one of my favorite princess movies growing up, and as you can tell, my initial sketches kind of were inspired by her hairstyle in the movie. So I kind of found that in my initial sketches. But at some point I just found myself getting stuck again, so I drew my 3 randomized people and just kind of like spread around the 3 colors across the body just to get to see what they possibly could look like. I do this just to see like the different color arrangements and where the colors could go. Sometimes it helps, and in this case it really didn't. So I tried to play around even more after an icky sketch in the middle, which I'm not going to talk about. That's ugh. That just reminds me of the early 2000s, I don't know why, or the late 90s. I felt like, let's try something different. I said to myself that I'm making the assumption that I'm going to create a carrot with normal skin tones, that it has, an attire that is the same as these 3 colors. What if I just switch it up? What if I just make her green? And so I filled her skin green, and the first thing I thought of was Shrek. But then bit by bit, the more I filled in the sketch, I realized, oh, there are other green characters like Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z, and the Wicked Witch herself from Wicked, which, by the way, if you guys don't know, the original Broadway cast of Wicked I believe the character's name is Elphaba. The lead actress and performer for that was Idina Menzel, which is the voice actress for Elsa. So if you guys didn't know that, Idina Menzel is like an icon in the musical Broadway world. So no wonder she's an amazing vocalist. But yeah, so when I was drawing this random head, I was kind of feeling it a little bit more when I started to see the green tones and the skin tone being more green. Because what's really nice is the really like rich green color worked really well with the teal. And so I could use the teal more as a blush instead of actual blush tones, which is awesome. And then at some point, I think in the process, we were at the point in the movie where it's the nightmare scene, and she's kind of like in this, Anastasia's actually in this kind of this long sailor female attire, and I thought that was really cute, so I decided to sketch that out. And I started to fill in the skin green again, and then I started to fill in the rest of the attire with the other colors, leaving the top primarily white. And at this point, I think things started to really click for me. And I really kind of liked where this was going. I really liked the attire, I really liked the look, but at this point I also was kind of considering, like, do I want her to be dirty blonde or do I want her to have dark hair? So I did a really quick sketch with the Ohuhu fine pens, which is also the pens that I used for this illustration as well. I just quickly drew it out and tried to fill it in again to see what I'd like out of the color arrangements. Maybe I liked a darker hair instead of a blonde hair. And in this process, I agreed, yes, I like the darker skin, not the darker skin, but the darker hair more than the dirty blonde hair. But at this point, I was leaning away from the Anastasia hairstyle to Wicked. And so it kind of led me to kind of like to this path where I wanted to create Elphaba, but more like an anime schoolgirl. So that was kind of like where this, what was it, the sketch process, this idea session kind of led to, and I'm actually really happy that it led to this too. But at this point, because I knew what I wanted, I knew the design of the character and everything, I wasn't sure about the color placement of some of the parts of her attire. So I decided to draw a quick full body pose of the character and try to like fill in areas that I think would be good for certain colors. And this is just something that I tend to do just to make sure that I like where the colors are going, because before I would kind of like guess in the process, be like, oh, you know, I like that colors here and there, maybe this will work out. But when I do like 3 marker challenges, because I do have a limited amount of colors, I do really want to know exactly where the colors are going. So I spend a little bit more extra time just figuring out where I want to put the colors. Once I figured out where the colors should go, as you can tell, my favorite one is the mini sketch. That's the colors I like for the design. After that, I started sketching different poses. I'm at this point of the kind of like this brainstorming process is, okay, you have the design, you have the character, but now what? What is their character? So I was trying to figure out what's the personality of Elphaba. And what type of mood do I want to show? And realistically, I didn't want to be too intense. I was trying to remember the musical because I did watch it when I was younger, but I didn't want to be too intense. I kind of wanted it to be fun and floaty. So this quick sketch that you see in the bottom left-hand corner becomes the main idea for the illustration in the end. And I was kind of thinking at this point, am I going to commit to a full body illustration? Because usually whenever I do 3 marker challenges, I do really kind of like postcard size illustrations. This one is like doing a full page, and this is also one of the reasons why I did the 3 marker challenge with the Ohuhu markers. I also wanted to test out the Ohuhu paper with them as well for a full illustration. And I think this process made me realize a few things about the paper, and I'm kind of a little bit inspired to create one more video to test the paper this time. At the end of it, the Ohuhus performed still very well, but I don't know, the way it reacted to the paper made me think, is it the marker's fault that it's still kind of a little, what's it called, a little bit streaky? Or is it the paper's fault? Because sometimes it could be the paper. And usually whenever I do illustrations, traditional illustrations, I use the Strathmore Bristol Smooth paper. And that's pretty thick. And I think the Ohuhu paper in this notebook is actually a little bit thinner. So I kind of want to now compare the paper to my more traditional tools, which I usually use, which are my Prismas and Copics. So I think the next video will be me testing the paper more than testing the markers. And I'm going to be using only my Copics and Prismas for the next 3 marker challenge. So I think that's what's going to happen next. But yeah, I can't really say that there's something wrong with the paper, but I want to test it out. I want to test my theory here. And so this sketch actually kind of took some time. I did some sketching on my own. I turned off the camera and just focused on myself a little bit, because I think it's been a while since the last time I did some type of traditional artwork. And because this one was also not just a simple one, it was a full body with a pose and an actual item that they have to sit on. It did take me quite some time, and for some reason these eyes on her face just did not work. Like, I had to redo them, I think 5 times to be happy with it. And I'll admit, even though it's really nice, I'm happy with it too, like with the final design and all. I still feel like the pose is very stagnant, very posy, and I don't feel any like weight in the pose, or I don't feel any movement. And I always like to have my poses be, at least I'd like to try to have all my poses be very light and floaty, and basically it has movement. You can tell that there's weight. But this one, I just feel like she literally was just there on the page, with nothing really showing any type of gravity to to the illustration. I just realized when I said gravity, and like in the musical, there's an original, not original song, a solo piece, sung by Elphaba, the Wicked Witch, and it's called Defying Gravity. So literally, yeah, this character is defying gravity. There's no like sense of gravity. So I think that's what I'd like to work on further, but it could be subconsciously I was very insecure about myself doing traditional artwork, and especially a full body character right out of the blue. So I tend to draw very safe and very stiff when I'm rusty or I'm not as comfortable or confident with myself. So I'm gonna say the reason why my character looks like this is probably because of that. And so the sketching process in itself, I think in 3 major parts. The first one is the rough sketch of the body, okay? And then the second one is refining the contour of the body, really cleaning it up so it's like a really cleaned dummy. And then, or dummy or mannequin. And then the final step is adding all of these details, like the outfit, where the folds go. And I think once I put all of these character details in, the style of the illustration really started to lock in, and I started to really enjoy this process. This illustration overall did take me 2 days. The brainstorming process took me an entire day, or not an entire day, but the first day. So maybe about like an hour and a half of brainstorming. And so I took a break, and then the next day I took my illustration, my sketches, and kind of reassessed them a little bit more, refined them, and then went with the final illustration that you see here. So it did take me 2 days. And usually I'm the type of person that kind of does the whole, like, I'm going to sit down and complete an illustration from start to finish. But in truth, I'm just not that person anymore. I have other things to worry about. And at the same time of me, I think, creating this character and drawing this illustration, grades were due. And so as a teacher, I had to make sure that all the grades were submitted. And due to COVID, I've been giving a lot of my students this late policy where even if it's super late, like a month late, if you turn it in, you'll still get credit. Because I have no idea what's going on with your life. So if something happens and you lose control a little bit and you kind of like lose track of time and you forget to do an assignment, you still have the opportunity to make it up. And so I've been giving them a lot of this wiggle room to make up work, and because of that, the students that don't tend to turn in assignments on time kind of do it last minute, and then I start scrambling and grading them and trying to finalize my grades before officially submitting them into the grade book. So it's a little bit of a race, and no, not even race, more like a disorganized race or shuffle of getting things organized. And I couldn't just sit down and do this illustration in one go. I needed time to review grades and study my work to make sure that what I'm plugging in is correct. And that's kind of like the struggle that I think I've been experiencing at this point in my life. I love what I do as a teacher. I think teaching is honestly what I was meant to do. I really, really enjoy it, but I do also love to draw, and just finding the time to do both has been a interesting experience, and I'm getting better at it bit by bit. I don't think I found the right, method yet, but I think I'm slowly getting there. Okay, but now let's go ahead and return back to the artwork here. So as you notice, I started using kind of like this mauve purple. I think the color number is R11. And what I did was I placed it in the furthest area from the light source. Now I did this as more of an experiment because I didn't know if it was going to work. Because with my digital artwork now, I kind of have like three-dimensional lighting, where you have a really intense light, which is like a yellowish tone on one side, and then on the opposite side, further away from the light source, you have a soft reflected light, and that's usually used with the purple. So I wanted to try, that same logic with this, but it just wasn't working. I felt like the purple was too different compared to the green. So instead, I just went over it again with the green, and I started to layer in the purple back into it. And bit by bit, it was very cool to see this effect, because the purple started to really blend in with the green. And when it started to blend in with the green, it also started to overtake some of that area as well. In order for that to happen, though, you do have to really brush in the purple on top of the green to get that really cool faded effect. And you can really see that heavily in the legs here. And personally for me, I feel like that's kind of like a waste of tools. But, if that's the method, then that's the method. But if I had to do a character like this all the time, granted, I don't think I would use Ohuhus. I'd probably use Copics, because I would have refills for those Copics. Because once again, it felt like I was using a lot of ink to make this work. Really like the effect, really do. I really, really do. It's just, I don't know, maybe I don't like wasting things, but I felt like I was wasting the ink. Okay, and so once the green skin was down, instead of working on the hair, I started working on the top. And I think you can argue and say, well, that's not 3 marker challenge anymore, because I started to use different colors for the top. But white is white, and I just needed to make sure that the shaded area still kind of like made sense, and also that the purple wasn't too, I don't know how to say it, but too purpley. Like, I didn't want it to be like the shade areas is only purple. I wanted to like blend into a nice soft gray. So for the top, I used used variants of gray tones from the Ohuhu Marker set to accommodate and to blend with the purple. And it has this really cool like pinky underglow, which is nice. And that's kind of like why I like to use the purple. I really like that underglow, or that, I don't know, what's it, that reflected light look with purple. I think it's a really cool effect. And so once I was done with the top, I went to the hair, and I actually have no idea why I did this. Usually I do the skin and then the hair next, but I don't know why I went to the top. But in this case, I went to the hair, and what I did was I left a lot of blank space on the area that was closest to the light source. Leaving empty space and taking advantage of the white color of the paper can help provide natural highlights into the hair. And because also the hairstyle is very simple, I wanted the overall kind of like, I think the word is rendering or blending of the hair to be also just as simple as well. So it's a lot of kind of like layering in this case, because I'm using the same teal and then adding the purple into it, and then bringing back the teal again, and then adding the purple into it again, and then adding the teal again. And in the end, with bit by bit, the buildup worked, and we had this really, I was able to get like this really nice soft and I don't know, smooth hair color. But yeah, and I didn't want to overdo it. And I think this is also another thing I noticed too. Whenever I do traditional stuff, my style is a lot more simple. And I don't know, maybe it's because of the limited amount of workspace I have, or the fact that it is traditional, so I get a little bit more stressed out about drawing traditionally, that I tend to draw more simple things that are a lot more accessible. But if I did digital, that's where I could feel like I have no limitations, and then I could just keep going and really like blend and brush and be really messy, and add as much details as possible. So I just find myself like going the more simpler style or simpler route, or more simple route whenever I do traditional stuff. And I don't know, do you guys do the same? Do you guys notice that maybe subconsciously you do easier things whenever you do traditional, instead of maintaining the difficulty and skill and subject matter that you usually do for digital? I don't know. I don't know. At least that's what I noticed for me. But yeah, and I think personally for me, my favorite part about the design is the dress. It's the entire kind of uniform look, and I'm really glad that I incorporated what I learned from Anastasia into her design. I think it ultimately is a really cute design, and I also kind of really like the color palette for the uniform. It works really well, and I don't know, maybe it's because her green skin really complements the colors, but I personally really like the color of the skirt. I like the kind of earthy, muted tone. I don't know, I think it's great. I think it's like khakis, right? Is that the color? But yeah, I really like this color. And I think at this point I was reaching a little bit of a wall as well, because I realized I didn't have anything that could help complement the shade areas of the skirt. So once again, it's a lot of layering and adding that purple into it, and more layering and more ink. And so I was able to get the darkness that I wanted, the shade areas that I wanted, but only after a lot of, layering. And so I think I also checked throughout the process. I would turn the page over to see kind of like the intensity of how much like ink bled through, but surprisingly enough, the ink didn't bleed through at all. It'll look like it possibly could have bled, but it didn't. And so that was kind of a little bit of surprise. But once again, I'm kind of like using a lot of ink, and so maybe I'm cheap, but I want to try to use things that don't use as much material so that I can use it longer. And so that's kind of like my next question here, because do Ohuhus last as long as Copics? And ultimately for me, I have no idea. I think probably someone made this test, so if you know the answer, go ahead and share it in the comments because I'd be happy to know. But usually when you buy cheaper marker sets, they don't really last as long as the more expensive ones. And so I don't know if Ohuhus actually last as long as Copics, right? It's a test that I don't think I'm willing to try, because in order for me to do that, I would have to use one of my markers and drain it out, and I am not going to do that. So once again, if you know the answer for this, go ahead and share in the comments, because I'd be happy to read about it and have a better understanding of how Ohuhus really compete with Copics. But now we're here. We're basically coming to a close. Not entirely. There's still a lot of stuff I have to do still, but majority of the character is done. And overall, I really do like the pose. I really like the overall feel. Yes, did I criticize it initially at the beginning? Yes, I did, because there are elements to this drawing that I do want to improve. For example, once again, I want a little bit more flow in her pose. I feel like it's very pose-esque, where it's very stagnant, and I would like a little bit more. I feel like the swirl in the braided hair really helps with that, but I think the body could really be more pulled back. Maybe her head is being pulled back a little bit more. That could help that kind of like that weight that I'd like to have in the illustration. But other than that, she is definitely defying gravity on the page and just kind of floating there. And so something interesting and something fun that I wanted to do was I grabbed a lid from like a Nestle, what's it called, hot cocoa bin, and with the mauve purple I traced the outer edge of the lid and created this really cool kind of like circular background. Now I filled this up with the mauve purple because you want to use, once again, a color that is complementary to the colors that you used in the character. And for this one, the majority of the colors are kind of more in the green area, the green family. So the opposite of green is technically red, right? But I didn't know if red or pinks or anything like that would fit. So I looked then at the skirt, and the skirt color, the brown color, is actually leaning towards more of a yellow, and so the complementary color of yellow is purple. So I picked the mauve purple, or the R11 that I picked for the shade areas of the character as the background instead. And I think it definitely worked, but I think as well, my comment initially at the very beginning of the video on how the colors are kind of the same intensity level, I didn't feel like certain colors popped out in this illustration. So I tried to kind of like fix that by using a Jelly Roll pen and by outlining it in white. I think this helped really have the character pop out a little bit more compared to the background. But at the same time, I also feel that it lost the direction of the light source in this process. And, you know, you win some, you lose some. And I think, even though I really liked the outcome of this, I would have really liked to maintain the light source in the video. But I made the decision that I made during the process, and it's still a good decision. I just feel like there's probably something out there that probably could have been a lot better. But yeah, I think at the end of this process, as I kind of like really use the Ohuhu markers for this one, the Ohuhu markers really did perform very well. I was very happy with them overall. And they did blend nicely. Now, what I did notice is that they also tend to kind of like devolve the streaking in the markers over time. So if you're using the markers and you notice as you're using it there's a bunch of streaks, you can see the brush strokes back and forth. I would give it maybe a little bit of time to just relax a little bit, because it starts to blend a little bit better through time. I'm not saying like a day or anything, it's just a few minutes, but that's kind of what I noticed as well with the markers. But I think it's because of the paper and not the markers itself. So I think in the next video, once again, I'm going to go ahead and do another 3 marker challenge, but this time I'm going to test, what's it called? The paper instead of the markers. So I'll be using primarily my Copics instead of Ohuhu markers for the next test. But yeah, I'm not adding little tiny details here and there, and I don't know if you guys use these too, but I also use Stabilo pens, and I use the color Stabilo pens to add little tiny markings here and there, to add a little bit of texture with this illustration. And I used brown Stabilo for the skirt, and then a green one for the hair, and a nice light purple, like a lilac, very similar to the background color for the white of the top. And I like this little texture. I've been doing this a lot with my digital stuff, so I wanted to add that too with my traditional, and I think it definitely worked. I really liked it. I like the additional texture that was added. But overall, that is it. If you guys want to see more, or want me to test out Ohuhus in another way, or do more 3 marker challenges, or you want me to draw a specific character, or you guys want a video of me explaining my process, or explaining what I do, just let me know in the comments below. Making YouTube videos is kind of like a hobby. It's just for fun, but I do want to make sure that the type of content that I do release is stuff that you guys are interested in. So don't be shy. Just let me know in the comments below what you guys want to see, and I will do my best to get it done as soon as I can, after my other responsibilities are completed, especially my teaching responsibilities. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!